Hello everyone, welcome to episode 37 of Berry Fun Adventures. It has been a bit of a while since I have come to you last, so if you are new to the channel, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you for sticking around and coming back. My name is Tanya, and for those of you who don't know, and I'm coming to you from southeast Minnesota, where my family and I run Firefly Berries, which is a fruit farm that specializes in strawberries, Concord grapes, and naturally dyed yarn. To explain why I haven't been here for a little bit longer than my normal schedule I was putting out kind of every 2 weeks, I know that I do not need to explain to you necessarily why I wasn't here, because I feel like when I watch podcasters, they do not owe me an explanation when their life is busy and they cannot podcast, but because I feel like we have become a community and I have friends out there and we wonder about our friends. I want to give you a quick 1 or 2 minute update about why I have been away. And also that's going to lead into some things we're going to talk about later. So first of all, February and March, for those of you who have not been to Minnesota ever, they are very long months. It is a long winter. Our winter starts probably November. And then it gets cold and it's cloudy and it's either brown or snowy, and it's fun in the beginning. It's good until about, I would say, like mid to late January. But the winter blues are a real thing, and they hit me in shortly after I came to you last, I would say. And it was just, I didn't have the energy. I didn't even feel like knitting or crocheting. In fact, and you'll see by the number of finished objects I have since I came to you last, I have not finished very much at all. So I was pretty much making what brought me comfort. I spent a lot of time reading. For those of you looking for a good book or a good series, I was reading the Dear Mrs. Bird series. It goes Dear Mrs. Bird, and I think it's Yours Cheerfully. That's the one I'm finishing right now. And I can't remember the author, but I will put it on the page or on the screen for you and link it down below. But it is a great series. So I was reading that. I spent some time cross-stitching, which I will show you later in the episode. And also, it's been a lot. I'm 46 years old, for those of you who don't know how old I am. And, I'm getting to that stage in life where that perimenopause stuff happens and the symptoms are kind of like, what is going on? I feel like you're going through puberty backwards, and it's just been a lot. So that is the short and skinny of where I have been. Minnesota has warmed up. Well, it did warm up. Last week, we were in the 70s, even hit some 80s, which is kind of crazy for April. And then yesterday, we got 4 inches of snow or 5 inches of snow. It is melting today, but it's still pretty cold out and kind of unhospitable outside. But we are moving toward warmer weather, more sunshine. All that to say, thank you for sticking around. If you have been wondering where I was and are excited to be with me again to chat about what I have been working on. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Oh, first things first, before I tell you about my finished objects, I just want to say I'm very proud about this. Look I'm wearing for those of you who have been around a while, this is my Malin sweater. I'll stand up. Oh, I'm very close to the screen. It has this nice lace pattern on the front. It's got a very simple raglan neck, increases, whatnot. And this sweater I made, I don't remember, 6-ish years ago, 7 years ago. And last time I came to, several times, it's been a while, I have patched it. So I've patched it before. I've patched the cuffs, and I've put little patches on the elbows, but they were starting to rip out again. And so look what I did. I actually did it. I made a humongous patch, and I fixed one of my elbows. So that was very exciting, because this sweater, kind of how I wear my sweaters is as I've worn through them, I will use my older ones as they start to get kind of worn out. This one is just made with Cascade 220. It was one of the first sweaters I ever made. And I will use them then as work sweaters. So when I go outside to prune grapes or raspberries or something and I want to wear something warm but not bulky, I will wear one of my older wool sweaters. So was perfect. I finished it so that I could use it while I was pruning and tying grapevines, which we are almost done with. And yeah, so yay me, follow through. So that is what I'm wearing, and to be honest, I'm kind of warm, so I'm going to take it off real quick. Whew. The sun comes out. It's one of those weird times of the year where it's hard to figure out what temperature you want it to be in the house. Okay, so let's do some finished objects. So like I said, I actually did not do a ton of making. I mean, I did a lot of, truth be told, I did a lot of scrappy things. Like I worked on my scrap blankets that take scrap, a lot of blankets actually. I worked on some granny squares, and then I did some dishcloths. So I did finish 2 dishcloths, and these are made out of Knit Picks Dishy. The colorways should be listed on my project bag. Boy, I am out of practice. My project page. And I had a couple different skeins where I had like partial skeins, or maybe I had one full skein and then I had other so what I did is I made them half and half, and then this one, my blue, ran out a little bit before halfway, and so it's close enough. I started the orange sooner. That is the back. This is the front, and this is I'm looking at my notes, the Grandma's Second Favorite Dishcloth pattern by P.J. Allen. And I am, excuse me, I also have like some spring allergy kind of stuff going on. So I have kind of a lot of stuff in my throat. So if I stop to take a drink, or if you see a cut, it's probably because I'm coughing. But anyway, my husband really likes these dishcloths in our kitchen, and I noticed that we were kind of working through some of our other dishcloths that weren't hand knit. They were getting kind of raggedy and needed to go in the rag pile. So I made these 2, and also the other thing that he loves is I make these, here's my other finished objects, I make these little pot scrubbies. And this time I used, and these are crocheted, and I used the Tulle Kitchen Scrubby pattern, it's on Ravelry, it's free, by Nitty Natty. But instead of using tulle like she does, I used the Red Heart Scrubby yarn, and a G hook is what I had written down. So, and I think what I did is I did one more round around than she did to make them a tad bit larger. So I made like 5 or 6, maybe 5, I think 5, but one of them is being used, and I think one is in the laundry. So I just have 3 up here, and you'll see this one's kind of funky. I really was just in a place to use up little scraps and things that were left over. So these 2 have made a full one, but then I just, I didn't really care about what they looked like. They're pot scrubby and they work. So that is that. And then I finished just last Friday my Musselburgh hat. So this is a pattern by Ysolda Teague. Very popular pattern. It is actually a tube that you knit. You start with some increases, and then you do the decreases on the other end. And actually, as I was doing my decreases, I don't know that I did them quite right. I feel like maybe I decreased too rapidly. I actually knit a bunch on this. We took our second oldest. He is attending a university in Minnesota next year, and they had, what was it called, like New Student Orientation Day kind of thing, where he went and we got like tour of the campus kind of stuff, and ate at the cafeteria, and learned about lots of other things that were offered, and then he registered for classes. So I was in I called it College Parent Boot Camp. That's what it felt like, all day. And so I knit a whole bunch. I probably knit like from here up. Anyway, so I don't think I was following the decreases quite right because I was a little distracted. But anyway, we put it on so you can see it. Ooh, that's a nice look. Yeah, so it has a nice slouch to it. I prefer to wear mine like this instead of folded up, but you can do it folded up. I don't know, I'm not quite it looks okay that way too. but I'm not quite as big of a fan of the tight beanie. Yeah, it's definitely warm, and it does, I will probably still wear this if it's cool in the morning and I go outside to do some farm work, in the next month or so, because it still gets down in the 30s or 40s as spring progresses at nighttime for us here, so I'm sure I will put that to use. Okay, I think that is it for my finished objects. Moving on to my works in progress. Let's start with my favorite blanket. Now this is a knit along I have been talking about, put on by Kay and Dan of the Bakery Bears. They have They have a YouTube channel with a podcast, a video podcast, and then they also have a Patreon account or page that you can support them in that way. You do not have to be a patron to participate in this. If you are a patron, you do get the pattern for free, but you can also just watch the episodes and you will see what you need to do. So since I came to you last, they actually put out 2 episodes of my favorite blanket, featuring my favorite blanket. And each episode, she tells you the next chunk to knit. So I think there's 10 or 12 chunks throughout the year that we will be learning about. She'll dye a color, and then she'll tell us what the pattern is. Well, I am not, so each section requires 2 50-gram fingering skeins that you hold double. And I am not, at least not at the moment, I am not dyeing yarn to fit in my blanket. It's going to be more of a scrappy blanket. I'm trying to use up some of those single skeins in my stash that I didn't really have a plan for. Maybe they'd be okay for socks, but they weren't my first choice for what to knit for socks. Some of them I got in a goodie bag from an event, or maybe I bought and thought it was too thin. I tend to like the 80-20 base the best. It's a little bit thicker, with it being 400 yards per 100 grams versus a 75-25, which is often a 460 yards to 100 grams. Because I'm a loose knitter, I have to go down a little bit on my needle size when I make socks, depending, of course, on the twist and how plump it is. Sometimes, it's plump enough and it's all good. But all that to say, I started and finished the 4th section since I came to you last. So I'm going to back up a smidge and hold it up, and I won't talk to you while I'm holding it up because you probably won't hear me because my voice will be muffled. So here we go. So you can see way on the bottom where the light pink is, that is where it started, and then it increases. And I just finished this kind of yellowish section, and those are both, I don't have them in here, but those are both Very Fun yarn colorways. I think the yellowish kind of color that you're seeing come out it's called Delicate Nature. I actually knit, hold on one second. You may have seen me wear this before, but this is what that color looks like knit up on its own in my, this is called Love Note, my Love Note sweater. So it's a very delicate pale yellow with kind of some orange and gray, kind of some greenish colors in there. Okay, so that is held double with a very light variegated purple, pink kind of color, and I call that Heirloom Ornaments. I do not dye either of those at the moment. Heirloom Ornaments may come back later in the year. I do have a recipe for that, but Delicate Nature was one of those that I just used up what I had left in my refrigerator where I keep my dyes, and so that color was kind of a one of a kind. But yes, super excited about this. I'm really enjoying it. And this year I mentioned at the very beginning of the year that it was going to be the year of the blanket. And we kicked that off with a blanket binge between Christmas and New Year's. And I have continued to go strong with the blanket making. But I will say that in doing so, I have learned that I prefer the blankets that are DK weight or worsted weight over fingering weight blankets. Now I do like it if it's like my one cozy like blankie that I keep in the bed with me that I kind of just put over my shoulders, you know, if I'm cold or something that's more like a blanket. I like to have one or so of those. So I don't mind knitting those, but the really big blankets, I really like the thicker weight. And this garter with this fingering held double is so squishy. It's gonna be a wonderful, wonderful blanket. So she just came out, I think it was Friday. So today is Tuesday. No, it's not Tuesday, it's Monday, April 17th. So on Friday, I actually watched the video already. She came out with the next section 5, and it is got the fancy bits in it, as they called it. And this is the section, so because we're increasing this way, and now we're stopping our increasing, and we're doing both increasing and decreasing, so that way the one side of the blanket will turn and it'll end up being a rectangle instead of a square. So there will be 2 middle sections like that, and then we will start decreasing again at the end. So I'm really excited to get started on that. I did pick out my yarn. I have them wound up in my little yarn cozies here, but this I believe is called, I think it's Sweet Paprika, Pizzicato or something like that. It's kind of a pink with little highlights of purple. I'm actually making a pair of socks out of this, but the socks that I'm doing, this is only for the heel and the toe. So I had plenty left in that full skein to use in this blanket. And then I'm going to hold that double with, this is 3 Irish Girls. I have the tag for this one. And this is their Adorn Luxe base, which is 85% merino, 15% nylon, and it is in the Apocalypso colorway. It was a special ZK colorway from a couple years ago that I got in my goodie bag. So see, this is sort of like blues and greens and pinks, and I'm going to hold that with the pink. I'm curious to see how pink this looks. I'm afraid perhaps that the pink color maybe will take over this, but I'm going with it anyway. There's a little bit of this like greeny blue color mixed into the heirloom ornaments from the last colorway, so I'm kind of building on that to go forward with this. So hopefully by the time I come to you next time, I will be done with that next section. All right, so that is my favorite blanket by Kay Jones. Let's stay on the blanket bandwagon, shall we? This one is in a Berry Fun Yarns medium tote bag with little gnomes. And as a side note, my mother is very busy working on lots of new project bags. In fact, I have some waiting for me to categorize and inventory and all that jazz. Like I said, I haven't really been doing a lot of work either in the last month or so. In the last like maybe week, I started to do more. But otherwise, there will be more fun project bags coming. And the one that I'm really most excited about, which I'll show you on the next video, is a extra large tote bag. So it's in this sort of format, but it's big, like for a sweater or a blanket. It's really, really awesome. Okay, so in here is my temperature blanket, which is the Chevron Baby Blanket by Espace Tricot. And what I did is I added, I think, 2 extra repeats to make the blanket wider. And then I am just going to knit until I get to, I think, 80-ish inches is what I decided. That is about the size of a twin bed. So that is my goal. And this is for my son who is going to college, the one we took to his orientation. And so I need to have this done by the time he goes in August for school. But I've actually done quite a bit. So I was here when I came to you last, and I have done all of this. So I'll back up again so you can see it. starting to come together. And it's kind of funny, this color, so when you make a temperature blanket, I always link, oh, hold on, my lights are funny. There we go. I always link the TLC, Tony Lipsy Crafts, I think it's TLC. She does great tutorials on temperature blankets, but I always tend to pick for my lower the temperatures that are on the extreme end of the temperatures that we experience here that would be in the blanket. So for those of you who aren't familiar, a quick little tip for you is that when you make a temperature blanket, you pick a particular color of yarn to represent a particular range of temperatures. So say in Minnesota, we go from like 0 degrees or below 0 all the way up to 100. So, but the temperatures of like 95 and above are way less frequent than like say the temperature of 50 or 60. So I will tend to pick my least favorite colors out of the ones I am using to use at either end of the spectrum. Well, so I don't know that I even realized how many, I didn't look at the temperatures super closely before I picked them, but it's making I think that the blue color is making it blow out. This color here is called Marina, and you'll see my son was born in November, so this is all the temperatures for his first year of life. And so November starts down here, and then this is when we start to get a cold snap, because this is a cold temperature. These blue ones are the coldest temperature. So then you see, I think I'm almost done with January now, so you can see there's another cold snap. So in my blanket, I should be warming up, and the colors will start to change a little bit. But I am really enjoying this, and I did do some math because I was thinking to myself, like originally I was really hoping to have this done by June, by Zombie Knitpocalypse time, which is like June 20 something. And ideally it would have been nice to have it done by the time the knit along ends, because then I could get points for the knit along. But I'm not sure. It's possible I'll get it done, but I need to do I did the math with like 56 days, which is about what I've done so far, is about 22 inches, and I need 4 times that. So I won't be doing quite his whole first year of life. It'll probably be more like 3/4 of the first year of life before I reach the size I want to. And then I wrote it down, let's see what I wrote down. I need a total of 203 days approximately. So I need to do about 150 more days. And if I did the math right, and I would have to do about 3 days, so which would be 6 rows, there and back, there and back, there and back, because one day is down and back. I would have to do about 3 days of temperature each day of the week, which is kind of a lot. I mean, time-wise, it isn't a lot, but as not a monogamous knitter, the idea of having to do the blanket same project every day on a schedule sounds stressful to me. So what I'm trying to do, I'm not doing it as well because I'm also working on some secret pattern designing projects, which I'll tell you about later. I don't have quite as much knitting time because I'm working on some of those during the day. So we will see. Of course, it has to be done by August 1st is my ultimate goal at the very latest, but if I get it done before then, that would be great. So, and for those who are wondering, I am knitting this on a US 6 Chalgu needle, and the yarn is Knit Picks Superwash Wool of the Andes in the worsted weight, and I really love that for blankets because it washes well, and I can send it with it felts after a while because it's woolly, right? Like superwash wool does not usually stay superwash wool forever. Eventually it loses that superwash feature. So I just tell my kids that, wash it, and if you can, either only let it air dry, like lay it over the top of your dorm bed, or if you need to, then put it in the dryer for a short time and let it dry the rest of the way, just to kind of give it a little bit longer life expectancy. Okay, so that is the Chevron Baby Blanket by Espace Tricot. let's see what else I have over here. Oh, I think this one has my cross stitch in. Oh, no, it doesn't. This is my Jelly Roll blanket, another pattern by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. And this I made some decisions on. So let me pull this up. My needles are kind of stuck. This is a super fun pattern. I really love this pattern. You can see, I'll show you. It is the style, I'm going to put my needle here so I don't lose it. The style of the pattern is you knit in strips. So this is the back actually. You start your first strip down at the bottom and then you knit till here. You knit however long you want it to be. And then you start with the second strip. And you attach it with this really sweet little slip stitch technique. And it's excellent for using up tiny scraps, that sort of thing. When I came to last, where was I? Let's see if I have I was here. So I was on my fourth strip, but I was down here at the bottom, and I did all of this all the way up to where I am right now. So what I have decided, keeping in mind what I told you just a few minutes ago about how I am enjoying the DK or worsted weight blankets more, is that I am only going to finish this fourth strip to here. I'm going to weave in all my ends, and then I am going to stop this fingering weight because I am knitting this on a size 0 DPM, which is basically a toothpick. It's fine if I'm making socks, but a blanket, I do not know what I was thinking. I know what I was thinking. I liked how the gauge looked and the squishiness looked. So that's what I went with. Oh, I'm dropping things. So anyway, back to the blanket. I will be finishing just this little section. So I've been kind of I just decided this over the weekend. I've been really excited about finishing it. I'm going to finish this strip, and then I will have a long strip that's about, 8 inches wide, which is actually perfect. We have this bay window in our living room, and it's on the it's the first floor, but our house is built into the side of a hill. So it's up above on the back side. It sticks out one floor from the ground. And so it sticks out and it kind of goes out of the, I'm having a really hard time explaining this. It is a window that sticks out of our house. And it's kind of long, and we have real wood on the, I don't know what you call it, like the shelf of the bay window. And our cats love to sit in there because there's kind of like, if I'm sitting on the shelf, there's like glass all around us. So of course our cats love to lay there and sun themselves. And even though I try to trim their nails regularly, they scratch up the wood. So I tend to leave a blanket or something on that shelf. Well, some of their other blankets have gotten moved, or I think one of them I gave to the outdoor cats when we started having outdoor cat. And so this will be perfect for me to put down there because it might be a little bit long for the window, but it's pretty close to the width. So I can lay this on there and it will protect the window a little bit and it will be put to use. And then my plan is that I'm going to cast on a new Jelly Roll blanket in DK weight, which will either be 1 strand of DK weight or 2 strands of fingering held double. And I think I will like that a lot more. I'm going to make that one bigger so it's more of like a 2-person size blanket. So that, I'm really excited about that because I do still have a lot of mini skeins to use up. And what I love about the Jelly Roll blanket pattern is that you can use any amount of a scrap. It's perfect that way. You don't have to have any certain amount and it still looks really nice. And that one I have also in a Very Fun Yarns. This is the medium tote size bag, which I really love. Okay, how many projects do I have left? Let me look. Ooh, 1. Looks like I just have 2. 2 left. This one must be my cross stitch. Okay, let's move on to another blanket. This is my last blanket. However, this one, it's my granny squares. So I don't actually have them in blanket form. I have them in granny square form. These are the ones I did and I showed you last episode. And these are the ones I did since then. So lots of them. I'll kind of show you them as woo, that's really blowing out. As I hold them up as I talk. But these are all fingering weight yarn. I believe I use a size, I wrote it down, C hook. These are crocheted. And I prefer the yarn that is 80-20 or 85-15. Again, just because that difference of 60 yards, it really, depending on the spin or the twist on the yarn, it is different. This one's really fun. This, I think, was something I got from a trade, but it's very fallish. This one, I ran out of yarn at the very end, so just the very last row is orange. And these are 8 rounds of granny square, like I said, using the C hook, and I am following the Nitty Natty granny square tutorial. However, if you're interested, she just came out with a new granny square double magic ring video. I have not watched it yet. So it is supposed to be a better way to start. So you start your granny squares with a magic ring here. And the double magic ring is supposed to be a little sturdier. So that way when you're, washing it or whatever, it will hopefully stay together more efficiently. So I'm going to check that out. Maybe in my next ones I will use that technique instead. But yeah, I think I have about, I think I have about 30 of these done so far. I don't know how many I'll need. I guess I haven't really done the math yet. I'm just having so much fun making them that I'm going to put these in here, that I make them, and, when I'm done, and then I'll sew them all together. Or crochet them together, actually, technically. All right, so I have one more knitted object, and then I'll show you my cross stitch, and we'll talk about a few other things before I say goodbye. But this, actually did a lot of work on this. I had some of my local knitting friends over. It was really warm last Wednesday, and we knit outside. It was so nice, and it was even until like 9 o'clock at night. We didn't have to have jackets on. We had a little light on outside, and we hung out together. And I got a ton of work done on my Sonray pullover by Jennifer Steingass. It's blowing out a little bit, but I finally finished the color work and I separated for the sleeves, and I've knit about, 2 inches. So now I'm at the point where I just knit round and around and around. And I haven't done this one as much since last Wednesday because I was working on that secret pattern I was telling you about, and also I was feeling like I needed to work on my son's blanket. But what I will say is that, I don't know if you can notice it or not, but like I said, this is a pattern by Jennifer Steingass, but this is actually not the complete color work. So if you have been with me before, you will know that I mentioned that I don't like yoke sweaters where the yoke depth is too long and then you get a lot of fabric in your armpit area. It's not comfortable. So I was very cognizant of that with this pattern. And the designer is great. She tells you exactly how much your yoke depth should be based on your pattern size. Well, mine was supposed to be 8.5 inches, and I knew that my row gauge, even though my stitch gauge was correct and on target with the pattern, my row gauge was longer. So I was getting, I don't know how many, but I was getting fewer rows over an inch versus what she had on the pattern, which told me that I was probably either going to have to make some modifications with the color work or stop it or whatever. Well, I measured it just a tad bit too late. Had I measured it sooner, I probably would have stopped the color work here with just the feather looking arrow things, but I didn't. And so I was kind of down to this area. So what I did is I I did kind of my own design. So the very last section is sort of my own design, but I think it looks okay. At first I didn't have these, it was a little too abrupt because I just sort of stopped it. But what I ended up doing, instead of ripping out, here's a pro tip for you. If you're working on color work and you realize that you should have done something different, sometimes you can go back and you can duplicate stitch over the top of your stitches instead of ripping everything out. So that is what I did, and I don't think you can really notice too much. But down here, I think I knit to this, it was just 3 across stitches here on the bottom of this design. So I duplicate stitched this one down here to make the arrow a little longer. I think there's 2 more stitches there. And then I added in these little ones in between. So when I did that, I really think it looks pretty good. And I'm much happier with it. I was like this close from ripping out the whole, like, it would have been a mess, to be honest. It would have been a mess because I would have had to, like, all of my stitch markers for my repeats I had taken out because now I'm just knitting in the round. So I'm glad that I stopped myself before I ripped it back. But anyway, that is a lot of yappering about this sweater, but I love it a lot. I really hope that I will get it finished in the next month or so. Like I said, it's just knitting around, and then it's sleeves, and then there's color work on the sleeves, which I will probably modify to some degree so that it looks like it matches what I modified on the yoke, because I think, I have to double check, but I think that the sleeve color work is almost exact replica of what's up here. So I don't want it to look too funky, so I gotta check that out. But it is made out of, I didn't tell you what it's made out of. It is made out of, the gray is the Roan Sport base from Lavender Loon. And I think it is called, let me see here. It is called Evermore. So Lavender Loon is another fabulous dyer out of Minnesota. She's one of my friends, Sam. Fabulous dyeing. And this is a non-superwash sport weight. And then the color work is done with a Crazy Zauber ball. This is the one I'm using. Held double with some cotton candy pink mohair from Very Fun Yarns. So it gives it that fluffy look. And I really like it, how it turned out. So that is my Sunray. And then, that's right, the last thing I wanted to show you is the cross stitch I'm working on. So this is kind of fun. I do like cross stitch. My husband laughs at me. He knows that I just pretty much collect cross stitch, but there's not too much to see because I've only gotten this far. I'm doing the white on the bottom, but I'm probably doing this incorrectly. I'm sure I am. If you are a avid cross stitcher, you're probably like, shouldn't you have that in a hoop, or shouldn't you be starting from the middle? I'm sure there are rules I am breaking. And you know what? You can give me your suggestions if you really want to, but sometimes I just break the rules and I do what I want to do because it's my crafting and I'm the boss of my crafting. But this is what I'm making. It is a cute, tiny little Merry Christmas penguin that I plan to give as a gift for someone for Christmas. And I will say that I got, the reason I wasn't like planning on getting this, but we opened a brand new Joann's in Rochester a couple weeks ago, a month ago maybe, and I went in there to check it out, and it is huge. I have never, it feels like a warehouse craft store. I have never seen such a huge Joann's before. Anyway, it was really fun to go in there, and they had tons of new sections and fabric, and I'm going to take my mom there when she comes to visit in a couple weeks, and we'll probably find some fun fabric and things for bags. But yeah, I had so much fun. So I got that there, and then I started to work on it. And then moving right into stash movement, I also got, because I was in a washcloth mood, when my kids go off to college, I have decided that I make them each a dishcloth, one of the scrubbies. So one of these dishcloths that I showed you before, and one of these scrubbies, and then I make them a bowl warmer cozy. So like if you're warming up soup, or I don't know, making hot oatmeal in the microwave, you put the bowl cozy underneath it so you don't burn your hands. So I knew I was going to do that, so I got a couple colors. of the Sugar and Cream, Lily Sugar and Cream, for my son in the colors I thought he'd like. He's a blue-green kind of guy. And then I got this one in the Red Heart Scrubby Stripes for his scrubby to go with it. And then I just really liked this color for me because, you know, who doesn't like rose gold and peachy pink? And yeah, that was it. Oh, and the other thing that I did bring in this month was some Emma's Yarn minis. I think I brought in 7. I have some of them here. So this was sort of a purchase. My oldest, I had to go up to the cities. I don't think I told you this yet. I don't think I've podcasted since then. The last week, second to last week of March, I had to go up to Minneapolis, St. Paul area, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours from where we are in southeast Minnesota, and I had to get his viola bow rehaired. We don't have a really nice string store here in Rochester, so I went up there to the store, to the House of Note, and got his viola hair. I had to drop off the bow to get rehaired, and then we picked it up another day we were going up there, but I was like, I drove all the way up here, so I'm going to find me a yarn store nearby, and I'm going to see what they have. So I stopped at Harriet and Alice's, which is very close to where I was. It is in Edina, so if you are in this neck of the woods, it was a very nice little store with multiple levels, very friendly staff. I actually got lost, and I had to call and say, I don't know, I know you're here, but I don't see the store, and I don't know where to park. So she helped me find the parking ramp, and that was really great. And when I went in there, I didn't really need anything, but you know, I am in a mini place. So, and at the time I was hot and heavy into my granny squares. So I thought, ooh, I'm going to get, okay, here on there, I'm going to get some minis if they have minis. And they did, they had a whole section of them in 80/20, what I love. And so I picked out 7 minis, and I'm going to make a granny square, and then I'm going to use the rest held double in my DK Jelly Roll blanket. So super excited about using those up. So I did not tell you last time I came to you what my stash movement was for February. So I'm going to tell you my February-March stash movement. I did not have too much movement, to be completely honest, but I am still doing really good with keeping the amount of what goes out to the amount that what comes in pretty equal, which is really my goal. I mean, it would be great to use more than what came in, but as long as I'm not way over, I feel like I'm doing okay. And to be completely honest, a lot of times I will take yarn from my Very Fun Yarns inventory and I knit that, and then my yarn in my stash does not move at all. But this month, or February and March, I should say, not April, because we're in April now, February and March, 2 skeins of that Red Heart Scrubby yarn came out, and 2 skeins of Knit Picks Dishy came in. However, I also bought 2 new skeins of Red Heart Scrubby, and I bought 2 new skeins of Lily Sugar and Cream. So those sort of washed each other out. I brought some in, I took some out. And then another full skein of yarn went out when I finished my Musselburgh hat. But the minis, I'm kind of counting as 2 skeins. Actually, 7 skeins is like 1.5 skeins. So let's just count it as 1. Here, we'll fix that on my tally because for some reason I was thinking it's more like 2. So we'll say 1 full 100 gram skein came in. So I am actually completely even during the months of February and March. 5 went out, 5 came in. Now, you'll remember I'm not really keeping track of mini skeins because it is really hard to keep track of mini skeins. So maybe eventually I will do that, but once I use it for a project like the Musselburgh hat, I have about 20 grams left of that skein. That will then go into my scraps, and I don't count that as going out because I have already counted it as going out, if that makes sense. So I'm at 0 for February and March, and in January I had used 1.5 more skeins than I did take in. So I'm still in the positive as far as what's going on here, but yeah, I just thought I'd check in really quick and tell you how that is going. And if you're working on that, please be sure to head over to our Discord channel, and you can chat on there. We do have a stash movement, what is it called? Thread, a stash movement thread where you can chat about that. We have a blanket thread. We have lots of really fun discussion opportunities over there, and I would really like and love to see more of you over there. It's been kind of quiet recently because I have been kind of quiet, but hopefully that will pick up again soon. So I think that's it for Yarny projects and stash movement. The only thing I really have left to tell you about is a very quick, brief update on Very Fun Yarns. Some of you who have been following me for a while, or maybe found me during Vlogmas of last year, will know that I did in previous years put out a Advent Countdown kit of sorts, and I will be doing that again this year. I'm very excited about it, although I have to say in recent weeks I have been trying to help my stress level and everything else. I've been trying to slow down a bit and cut back, and my husband was sort of not encouraging me but questioning me about if I really wanted to delve into Advent countdowns because they are so much work. But I have this idea that I'm so excited about. I have written down all of the colorways already that I'm going to make and the different dyes and colors that I want to use to make up the colorways. I have a pattern. Actually, it's a pattern that has both a small and a large version that I have designed to go with it that I'm still tweaking, but it is in the works and will be going with the kit. So I am definitely going to be doing Advent kits this year. And there will be some pre-orders going live on Friday, April 28th. And at this time, I just haven't had the brain space to delve into international shipping because it gets so complicated with dealing with taxes and all that kind of stuff when you ship. And since I do that all myself, I haven't gotten into that. But if you really, really want an Advent calendar and you are from a different country other than the United States, I may get Canada figured out by next week. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a possibility. But if you are outside of the United States and you really would like to have a Advent calendar, message me. You can message me at berryfunyarns@gmail.com. And I will do some research to your specific country based on the weight of the package that I will be sending, and I might be able to work something out with you so that I can send it directly to you. So that is that, but what you need to know about the Advent kits is that there will be two options. There will be both a 10-gram mini and a 20-gram mini set. Each will come with 25 mini skeins, so there'll be one for every day plus the 25th. If you are doing it as a Christmas countdown, you'll open on the 25th minis, and then there will be solid at least one skein, I believe. For the 20-gram mini set, it'll probably be more like 150 grams of a tonal contrasting or complementary color to go with the mini skeins. And that is because sometimes in years past I've done like 24 minis and then a full skein. That's totally different. But because of the pattern that I'm developing to go with it, you need that tonal skein to be a part of the pattern and the project as you're knitting. So if you're knitting each day as you open them, then you will want that tonal skein right away. So that's sort of like the bonus that will probably not be wrapped. Or maybe I'll wrap it, and I don't know, I haven't decided yet. But that is kind of the extra, but then you'll still have 25 minis to open days 1 through 25. And then as far as like goodies to go with it, I really wanted to keep the cost down to make it as reasonable as I could, because I do recognize that it is a very big investment for makers to trust us as dyers. Here we are in April, and this isn't going to be shipped to you until November. So I recognize that, and I really wanted to keep the price down. So the goodies that are going to be with it will be smaller. It's still fun, but not as big, not as, I don't know, they'll just be kind of fun little add-ons. But I will also be offering an option for a project bag add-on that you can choose to add to your full Advent Countdown kit. And that will be all available starting on April 28th. And hopefully that is like almost 2 weeks away, but I'm really hoping to put out another episode before then. At the very least, an episode where I just talk about Advent kits and countdown kits and what's in them and when the pre-orders start and all that process once I get that figured out. Like I said, it's only been about a week that I've really felt the energy to get back into some of this stuff. So I haven't figured out all the details yet, but I am working on it. So stay tuned to that. And you can also follow me over on Instagram, where I am Very Fun Mom. And that's where I'll also post updates when I have them and reminders. You can also subscribe to my newsletter, which there's a link below in the show notes of this video. And when you do that, I will definitely be sending out an email newsletter. I think it's time for me to end this video. I'm losing my voice. And that will come out the week before, so a couple days before those Advent pre-orders go live. And I do not usually sell out of my pre-orders. I'm not that well known. So hopefully there'll be plenty in there for you to get one if you want one. Before I lose my voice completely, I'm going to end this video and thank you for joining me today. And I hope to be coming to you again very soon. Goodbye, everybody. Take two.